In this lesson, I want to talk about two things. One, Asian theologies of liberation and America's prosperity theologies. First, Asian theologies. In summary, Asian theologies include Mijung theology, Filipino theology of struggle, Burakumin theology of liberation, Dalit theology, water buffalo theology, among other contemporary theologies in Asia. That compares with African theologies. Now, theology of struggle, for example, emerged in Philippines in 1970s, though it was recognized in 1980s, especially in 1986, when the leader of the 40 million Roman Catholics, Archbishop Jaime Sin, led in the removal of the erstwhile dictator, President Ferdinand Marcos, by reading and calling for countrywide mass demonstrations. And in these demonstrations, Ferdinand Marcos had to leave the political scene, and Joseph Estrada came in, who was later removed, and merely a lawyer was put in. That is 2001, when he also started behaving in a corrupt way. The same church using these theologies of struggle, which are liberation theologies or political theologies, they played part in the removal of dictatorship and corruption in their country. Now, the coinage of theology of struggle was primarily embraced by a group of Christian activists who passionately sought social transformation of their society. Since 1970s, it has appropriated Marxist critique of Philippine society in an ideology that has largely been perceived as antithetical to the Christian beliefs. So here you see they're employing Marxist tool of analysis in order to trigger action. That is the issue of the social conflict theory that Karl Marx brought in. Now, the theology of struggle sees Marx's idea of class struggle that which is in tandem with the biblical principles, just as in Moses' confrontation with the Egyptian Pharaoh, so as to let the people go. That is Exodus 3. Another Asian theology is the Mijung theology of liberation, which also emerged in 1970s. Mijung is a Korean word for ordinary people, the politically oppressed, economically exploited, culturally marginalized, the poor and the powerless. Born from the struggles of the Korean Mijung, it seeks basic human rights, democracy, end to economic marginalization, police brutality, and militarization of the country. Since 1970s, key proponents of this contemporary theology include Su Nam-dong, Byung Yong, Kim Yok-bok, and Kwang, among others. In viewing God as one who stands with Mijung as they struggle against the above odds, the above contemporary theologians have not only participated in people's movements, but also reflected on their experience of acting in solidarity with the struggling Mijung of South Korea. A third sample of Asian theologies is the Burakumin liberation theology of Japan. In Japan, the Burakumin minority have been oppressed for more than 400 years. They are discriminated against in areas of marriage, housing, and employment, among others. A fourth Asian theology is water buffalo theology. Adding this, a Japanese theologian, Kosuko Koyama, attempts to translate the Christian faith into Asian tradition in Thailand. His concept is based on 1 Corinthians 9:22, which says, "To the weak I became weak to win the weak. I have become all things to all men and women, so that by all possible means I may save some." Koyama's missiological position is that in order to reach people, the gospel must be shared with them on their own level of thinking. Yeah, that's contextualization method. Koyama goes on to target Thai farmers who spend their days in the rice fields and argues that if the gospel is presented in our common theological terms, they will never comprehend it. It will remain foreign story. He addresses this by relating theology to the Thai rice farmers in their own language. Considering that most Asians are Buddhist, Koyama has incorporated Buddhism into his Christian theology. A fifth sample of Asian theology is Dalit theology. It emerged among the Dalit caste in India in the 1980s. As a liberation theology, it addresses the plight of the marginalized Dalit in light of the gospel of Christ. To some, it is a breakthrough from the earlier traditional Indian Christian theologies. One scholar by name Ginavalavan, let me say it again, a scholar by name Ginanavalam, it's a hard name to mention, says that Dalit theology and the parable of the Good Samaritan, he relates it with other liberation and enculturation theologies, such as African theology, Latin American liberation theology, Black theology of USA, Black theology of South Africa, and Black religio-cultural and socio-economic interpretations. In other words, Gnanavalam on Dalit theology and the parable of the Good Samaritan, he relates it with other contemporary theologies, particularly of the Third World that I've just mentioned. The other one in this lesson is Theologies of Success. One of the two theologies of success considered in this lecture is the theology of self-esteem. In a nutshell, theology of self-esteem is a unique North American pop theology born in the late 1960s in California's show business milieu and spread largely through the medium of televangelism. It is largely seen as a reaction against the warm theology, view of humanity, emphasized by the late Reformation Protestantism. It seeks to affirm the personal worth of individual and to nurture the self-esteem. To be born again means that we must be changed from a negative to a positive self-image, from inferiority to self-esteem, from fear to love, from doubt to trust. The last one is, or the second form of success theologies, American-based success theologies, is prosperity theology. Now, the great American dream of health, wealth, and power arose as a religious philosophy concomitant to the charismatic renewal of the 1960s, known variously as prosperity theology, or name it and claim it, and more formally as the faith movement. This system entails the idea that a Christian can and should live in perpetual wealth and material abundance, and that the avenue to these blessings is a simple exercise of one's faith. Thank you.